news. We start in the US, where there have been clashes on the streets of Los Angeles as President Trump urges a crackdown on demonstrators. Police have ordered protesters to leave the downtown area, declaring it an unlawful assembly area. Well, the unrest was triggered on Friday when immigration agents carried out raids on areas of the city with large Latino populations. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, otherwise known as ICE, have made 100,000 arrests across the country since President Trump's return to the White House. Well, in response to the unrest in LA, the president sent around 2,000 National Guard troops to the city. That's triggered a political row with California's Governor Gavin Newsom. He says that he's suing the Trump administration for deploying the National Guard without his permission. Well, here's what President Trump had to say when he was questioned about what's happening in Los Angeles a short while ago.
What does your intel tell you about these people causing all the problems in LA? Are they people ICE is trying to deport, or are they professional agitators?
The people that are causing the problem are professional agitators. They're insurrectionists. They're bad people. They should be in jail. Thank you.
Well, some journalists covering the demonstrations say they've been targeted by the police. The BBC has been given this clip of Lauren Tomasi, who's a foreign correspondent for Australia's Channel 9 News, as she's shot with rubber bullets. Have a look.
Moving them on through the heart of LA.
You just shut the You okay?
I'm good.
Are you okay?
Where did it hit you? Just my leg. I'm good.
Well, joining me now is our senior North America correspondent, John Sudworth in Los Angeles, and chief North America correspondent, Gary O'Donoghue in Washington. John, to you first. And what's the mood in LA this morning?
Well, I'll just give you a little bit of a scene set, Mariam, as to where we are. You can see the police cars behind me. They are here guarding the entrance to this street. A very short distance away along there is the entrance to the detention centre, where some of the undocumented immigrants who've been arrested in these workplace raids here in this city over the last few days have been taken. And this has been a focal point of the protest. We saw the National Guard lined up outside that entrance yesterday. Big crowd of protesters here, and then you can see on across the street here, this road is now open, but yesterday there were hundreds of protesters here. Just a little way over there is the 101, one of LA's biggest highways. That was blocked yesterday by the protesters, and this was the location of some of the most intense clashes between protesters and the police. The streets, Mariam, are still littered with the debris from those clashes. I've just picked this up. This is one of those rubber bullets. There are hundreds of them lying around, literally, which shows you how intense some of the moments were yesterday. It's this kind of foam bullet, rubber bullet, that hit the Australian reporter that you were speaking about there in that clip. And obviously they can do some damage. Another member of the media, a British photographer, needed emergency surgery after being hit by one of these yesterday. It was left embedded in his thigh and he needed it removed. So that gives you some sense of how volatile and how dangerous these situations can become. But at the moment, it is very calm. There are more protests planned as we get into the early part of this afternoon. And we are told that there are something now like 150 people have been arrested in these protests since they began on Friday.
John, thank you very much indeed for that. Well, let's cross live now and speak to Gary O'Donoghue in Washington. And Gary, just talk me through what we've heard from President Trump today, because he earlier said that he's rightfully stepped in to, in his words, restore law and order because, in his words again, of Gary Newsom's leadership. Any more reaction from the president this afternoon?
Yeah, again, he's suggested that the people responsible for the violence are professional agitators. He says they should be in jail. We don't know who has been arrested, or we don't have any details of them at this stage from the LAPD. So I'm not sure where he's getting that from. He was also asked whether Gavin Newsom ought to be arrested by the Homeland secretary, and he said I would. And that is because he believes, and they believe, that Gavin Newsom and the mayor of Los Angeles have stood in the way of them trying to implement this immigration clampdown, this enforcement action. And they believe that is some kind of offence. Now, the governor himself, over the weekend, when this was mooted, said bring it on. And they themselves, as you mentioned earlier, are suing the administration, taking them to court for the actions of bypassing them in order to federalise the National Guard.
Okay. Gary, thank you very much indeed for that. So let's talk a little bit more about the National Guard and their role here and why this decision by the President is so controversial. Let's cross live and speak to retired Major General William Enyard. He spent 30 years with the National Guard in Illinois, and you're also a former Democratic congressman. It's so good to talk to you. Thank you so much for joining us. And if I can ask you first of all for your reaction to this decision by the President to deploy the National Guard.
Well, essentially what the president has done here is abandoned the playbook. You know, the National Guard has been performing these kinds of missions for decades now. And as a result of our experiences, we've developed a playbook on how to do this. The first thing that happens is that the local chief executive, whether it be a mayor or a county supervisor, who has the eyes on the ground, so to speak, makes the determination whether or not he or she has adequate resources to handle the problem. If they do not have the adequate resources, then they elevate the situation to the governor of the state and request the assistance of the National Guard. That process has worked for decades. Mr. Trump has unfortunately abandoned that process, and sitting 3,000 miles away in Washington, D.C., has seized the moment to take control of the California National Guard and order them in. And
does this set a precedent? And if so, what could the consequences of that be?
Well, I don't think it sets a precedent. President Lyndon Johnson did this back in 1965, but it has been more than 60 years since it was last used. It's unfortunate, and it shouldn't be done because both the local chief executive, the mayor, as well as the governor of state say there is no problem. In fact, even Mr. Trump's Department of Homeland Security spokesperson stated there were only about 800 demonstrators. Well, a little more than the mayor said. The mayor said 300. But 800 demonstrators is hardly a large enough problem to call in the National Guard.
So was he wrong to do that, do you think, President Trump?
Well, I think he is. I think it's a misuse of a wonderful force. The National Guard is trained to handle natural disasters and is trained to respond as a combat force for the United States in the event of a national emergency. But we're trained for forest fires and floods and tornadoes and blizzards. The National Guard only gets about 4 hours of civil disturbance training in a year. This hardly qualifies them to really handle these types of things as compared to the local police forces, which deal with this sort of thing every day.
So what could the consequences be? I mean, there's a lot of fear on the streets of LA. I've been hearing from our correspondents on the ground. People are worried about what the National Guard could mean and what could happen over the coming days.
Well, I hope they have nothing to worry about from the National Guard. The National Guard is unlikely to take any kind of aggressive, violent action towards demonstrators. The National Guard, I would hope, will be used more as simply a security force to protect federal buildings and provide logistic support for the other police agencies on the ground. So I would anticipate that the Guard would not in any way create a problem for.
Okay. Well, Major General William Enyard, it's so good to talk to you. Thanks so much for taking the time to join us. And California Governor Gavin Newsom has been speaking to our partners at NBC in the last time or so. Let's have a listen to what he had to say.
Tom Homan, the border czar, said to me yesterday he did not rule out literally arresting you.
Yep.
Nor Mayor Bass, if you interfere in his words. He said you hadn't yet.
He's a tough guy. Why doesn't he do that? He knows where to find me. But you know what? Lay your hands off 4-year-old girls that are trying to get educated. Lay your hands off these poor people. They're just trying to live their lives, man. Trying to live their lives, paying their taxes, been here 10 years. The fear, the horror. The hell is this guy? Come after me, arrest me. Let's just get it over with. Tough guy. You know, I don't give a damn. But I care about my community. I care about this community. The hell are they doing? These guys need to grow up. They need to stop. And we need to push back. And I'm sorry to be so clear, but that kind of bloviating is exhausting. So, Tom, arrest me. Let's go.
OK, well, that's Gavin Newsom's reaction on NBC. This is the BBC's live page. It's being updated minute by minute. And if you use the QR code on your screen, it will take you here where you can read the very latest on the situation, not only on the streets of Los Angeles, but also what is happening politically in Washington as well.